that? Oh God, I'm gonna die. I gotta get this on camera. No. Hey everybody, welcome to the Marino Show. I'm your host, David Marino, and today I'm welcoming back Ladi Loera with Testify Austin. And today we're going to talk about some new things that are going on with Testify. It's been a while since we've caught up. So Ladi, thank you for being back on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, David. It's always nice talking to you.
So for those who don't know, tell the audience what Testify is.
Testify is a storytelling show. We're actually the longest running curated storytelling show in Austin. We work with 6 different storytellers every month on a story that's based on a theme. They work with the producers, they get story coaching, and then they tell their story in front of a live audience.
And I know, I've seen a lot of the stuff on social media, and sometimes people can be intimidated by speaking in public, but what I love about Testify, which I still haven't done, but what I love about Testify is that, from what I've seen, you really do have a very hands-on approach. The producers working with people, telling, and these are their life stories, no matter what that could be. It could be anything from a death, or it could be something really funny that's happened in their life. So it kind of runs the gamut, and you have themes, right? Every month you have a different theme. Is that correct?
Every month we have a different theme, and there are other storytelling shows in Austin, and we like the other storytelling shows. We've done them, but a lot of them are like open mics where people come up and just tell a story they've been thinking about. With ours, people actually submit the story. Our producers get together and we discuss the story, and then we send them notes on the story and we ask them questions. We make suggestions to help them focus the story a little bit better. And then once they work on that draft of it, we do another live meeting with the producers where they get another round of notes before the show. We really want to make sure that even the most nervous storyteller has a great experience and is not worried about the story they're going to be telling.
So tell me about some of the new things that have been taking place at Testify, because you've implemented some new things and there's also teaching involved, I believe, on your end. So talk to me about what has been implemented since we last talked.
Well, one of the things we've added is a story slam, it's a storytelling contest. And what this is, it's different than Testify in that this is more or less an open mic based on a theme. We have 8 people who will randomly call from the audience that have submitted a story to be part of the show. And we call them out. They come up and tell their story. We don't know the stories beforehand. We don't know these people beforehand. They tell their story, and then the audience votes on them. And then we have a panel of judges that also score their story. So this is a little bit different than the heart of Testify for me, which is the coaching with the storytellers. This is a little more fun. It's a little bit more raucous. I think the audience enjoys getting a chance to vote on the stories. So it's more like a competition in an open mic. And it's been a lot of fun. We've done them. We started them about a year and a half ago, and we do them twice a year. And it's really been a lot of fun.
So what was the thought behind starting the story slams? Because I know, up to that point, you really have kind of built it as a place where you're preparing people to tell their story. They go through a process, which you're still doing. But
yes,
how did this idea come into play?
Well, we actually were working with the theater that we're at, and they wanted another show. This was something that we were able to do, and we really liked it. But now we've made it part of our regular show, where we used to do Testify 10 times a month, because we take off in July and January. We're the first Thursdays of the month, and we don't want to compete with New Year's Day. We don't want to compete with July the 4th. No one's coming out anyway. So we don't have those. And we decided to go ahead, instead of make it 10 shows, we would do 8 shows, and two of the others would go ahead and be story slams. And it's been a really nice, because it just changes things up for the audience. They kind of get a surprise when they come. And there are some people who are nervous about working on a longer story, because Testify generally has stories that are about 9 to 11 minutes. And we are very, very picky. We have a time clock going, and if you go over time in a story slam, it doesn't matter if you were the best story, you're disqualified. So people like having the ability to tell a shorter story. I think it just makes them a little bit easier for nervous people.
Yeah. And you also teach as well, right? Is that
Yeah,
something
we
new?
started teaching last year. Uh, I love storytelling. I love it. And I go places and I hear people tell stories, and I hear sometimes, and people sometimes just have a good story, but they don't know how to tell it well. And I really like helping these people with their story so that they actually can format it in such a way that when they tell it to people, people will listen. Because you know how it is. If someone starts droning on to you in a minute, after 30 seconds to a minute, you've decided you're not listening anymore and you don't know what they're talking about. So we go out of our way to show people how to get someone's attention, how to hold their attention, and then how to close the deal, how to end a story so that people leave thinking, wow, that was an experience. Because that's what we want. That's what everyone wants if they tell a story.
You know what? I don't think I talked about this last time, but what's interesting about what you're saying right now is that this is the kind of skill that carries over into other parts of your life. At work, when you have to explain something in a presentation, and I've done that a lot, and I'm good about being succinct and getting what I need across in a presentation, but people don't often think that it's exactly kind of what you're teaching, right? Tell me how this kind of spills over into your personal and work life.
Well, I mean, the nearest way I can describe this is, imagine you're going on a date. It's your first date. You've met this person on some app, and it's a blind date or whatever it is. And you sit down, you say hello, and you start telling them a story that is meaningless. And it's not that it's meaningless to you. You're telling the story because it's important to you, but it's meaningless to them because they don't know why you're telling it to them. You've not given them anything to hold on to. You just go off on a series of details that you think are relevant, but they have no meaning in the story. And people have an impression that details are what makes a story, and details actually, if you start too soon with too many details, it kills your story. People get swamped in their head. I'm going to ask you something. Can you imagine a pink hippo in a yellow tutu wearing a purple birthday hat eating a chocolate ice cream cone? Can you imagine that? How long did it take you to imagine that? But that's what happens. The way our minds work, because we are visual creatures, the moment someone starts talking to you, you start visualizing things in your head. So when people give you details like, he was wearing a blue shirt, she was this tall, she had cross eyes, she was wearing glasses, her hair is long, you create all these things, and people are trying to visualize it in their head unknowingly, because people don't think that they're doing this, but we do it inherently. We live through our eyesight. It's our most important thing. So we try to visualize everything that people tell us. So when you give us too many details at the beginning of a story, you fire hose people. And now they're in a wash of a movie that just turns into some abstract thing where they're still trying to get a hold of something. And the moment they don't know what's going on, they lose interest in the story. And unfortunately, if it's your first date, they're probably going to lose interest in you too.
I can just tell you from my own experience. I think too, And this also probably just speaks to the time that we live in now, where our attention spans are shorter based on all the media that's coming at us, which is really quick. You know, you think of social media, you think of all these things now that are done in these kind of clips that we're watching in 20-second, 30-second clips. So it's almost even like, even my generation, I'm a little older than all these young 20 somethings, but they're used to instant gratification. And so I
They
think,
want to know what's going on instantly. You have to grab their attention right away.
and I feel like as a person in communications, we talk about this a lot with my job, is that you have to grab people so much faster now than you used to. Like, people are just, they tune out very quickly.
Well, a long time, when I was a kid, there was TV and you had 3 stations and you had to watch the commercials. You just had to. There is so much media out there. You don't have to watch anything if you don't want to, because there are 1,000 other things you can be watching at any given moment. So yeah, you have to get people's attention right away. And the right way to do it is by giving people a hook. And I don't mean like you're trying to sell them something, but you have to get them interested in what you're going to talk about right away. Otherwise, you lose them. You could start a story off with something as so simple as, I was out walking a dog today and I started crying. Well, now I'm interested. Why? First off, walking a dog is supposed to be fun. Why are you crying if you're walking a dog? And it's that quick and it's that simple. Whereas I know I have a friend of mine who, whenever we talk on the phone, she does not know an important detail versus a non-important detail. So whenever she's telling me anything, a phone call of a story that should last 5 minutes long will be an hour, because she just goes on and on with stuff no one cares about. You remember that actress? She was in that movie we saw when we were in the 11th grade. You remember that teacher we had in the 11th grade, Mr. Osmond? God, we hated him. That was such a bad class. You know what was a good class? Our Spanish. And then she goes, I'm lost. I don't even care about this conversation anymore.
That's hilarious, but that's true.
Yes, and that's what we teach in our class. We know how to begin a story. We know what the middle, we call it the messy middle, because that's where things can go wrong really quickly. And then, of course, the ending. And here's the thing. We act like there are rules. We teach the class like there are rules to storytelling. There aren't really rules as long as you understand what needs to happen at every place. If you know you need to get someone's attention at the beginning, if you know you have to have a certain amount of details in the middle, if you know how to wrap it up, if you find a way to do all these things in a way that's new and different for you, come tell me about it. I love hearing new stories and hearing new ways to tell stories. So we teach people, because this is kind of a beginner's class for storytelling. But if you understand what we taught you, feel free to use it in your own way, because that's what storytelling is. We all have our own ways of explaining ourselves to other people. And
How do
you
you,
really come tell a story with us, David.
I know, I know,
Tell a story with us. Since I've met you,
I know. It's
it's okay.
scary.
Okay, I'll get you.
I had something I was going to bring up or ask. You know, since you have been doing Testify, you and the other producers, for a while, and it has continued to evolve, even like, you know, with the teaching and the story slams, that type of thing. Do you have any, you know, you and the others who are involved in Testify, any other kind of ideas percolating of how you want to continue to see Testify evolve, even moving into the future? Are there other types of things you want to try, or have you thought about that yet, or is it just kind of?
Well, we added the basics class. We are now going into our next tier level storytelling, where we ask someone to come in with a story and we're going to help them specifically with that story, because we all have stories that we like telling in our lives. It's something that happened to us that means something to us, and because it means something to us, it's a story we share, like on first dates, like on a job interview. If they ask you a question, here's the thing: people will only tell that story one way. And we are going to show people how to take a 5-minute story and cut it down to 2 minutes. Because if you're meeting someone for the first time or you're in a job interview, they're not going to listen to a 5-minute story. They want you to be quick and succinct. And we're going to show you how to do that. In the same vein, if you're able to tell the story on a stage, we're going to show you how to pick pieces of your story out to expand it. So it's not the regular 5-minute your story you have. Now it's a 10-minute story where you can include more feeling, more details, and more information about you and make your story even deeper and stronger. So it's an advanced storytelling class because we want people to continue learning. And I think this is something that is going to benefit anyone who wants to get better at storytelling. Really, anyone who talks to people, because storytelling is what we do. That's how we communicate with everybody.
So how did you get to the point where you are today, where you're actually teaching people how to tell their stories in a captivating way? And I mean, obviously you've always loved storytelling, but the craft of it and teaching it is that's different than somebody who's telling it. So when in your life did you figure out that this was something that was important to you, and also that the passion for it was there to go in this direction? Because that isn't something that everybody teaches. Like, I think that's a harder thing sometimes to teach, how to tell somebody how to tell a story, So where did that come from for you?
I will say that in our classes, we do find that people have a way of telling a story that they think is good. And when we show them how to make it better, they are universally surprised and they start using it. And once they start using it, they can see the difference in their responses with other people. Now, the coaches, the storytelling producers, we coach people for Testify every show that we do. We spend about 5 hours listening to their story and talking with them and working with them on their story before they get on stage. What we heard from all of those people, they would say, man, I would take a class of this. You should teach this. You're really good. And it's not me. It's me and the other producers, Mark Gifford, Angela Maldonado, Gloria Rabel. And at some point I was talking to Mark. He said, we really can do a class. And I said, well, if you think we'll do it, I'm going to go ahead and start one. But don't be surprised if people don't sign up, if it doesn't happen. I don't want you to get mad, but I'm willing to put a leg out there. And it filled up within 2 weeks. And we were so happy. And from that point on, every class we've had, we've filled up, and we've been pretty proud of it. The people have come back. They've submitted stories to our Testify, and they've been asking for an advanced class, which is why we found a new one that we're going to start teaching.
Have you ever been surprised that somebody's, maybe that's the wrong word, or impressed is the better word, by somebody's, how they started when they came to the class and how they ended up, like maybe in the beginning they were really, it could be like some people are just scared to be in front of other people, I think. And then, because I think there's two things that come with it, well, maybe more, but there's the storytelling part. So once you get that down, that's great. But I think the other element to that is learning how to tell the story in front of people, because I think that's the thing that influences how somebody is going to tell a story, because they may have all the elements in their head, but they're afraid once they get in front of like a crowd.
I think one of the things that really people get afraid of more than anything else is making themselves vulnerable in front of a crowd, because it is. You're talking about yourself. You're talking about a personal experience. You're talking about something that happened to you in your life. And people have an idea how to tell a story. And I'm just going to give you a quick example. People will say, you know what it's like when someone has broken your heart. And we don't like that sentence. And here's the reason why. A broken heart for you might be different than a broken heart for me. A broken heart for somebody could be they get really hacked off. They get mad. They start screaming at whoever it was. They yell at everyone who calls them for the next week. They're kicking their dog. Not really, because I like dogs. I don't want to. But they're really mad. They handle it that way. Someone else has a broken heart, and they never get out of bed for a week. They'll call in sick to work. They won't do anything. So when you generalize and say, y'all know what it's like, they don't. It's different for everybody. So what we want to know from a storyteller is very specifically what it's like for the person telling the story. So when you generalize and say, y'all do this, we get people to change that right away and make it. When my heart was broken, I didn't get out of bed for a month. I barely fed my cats and I didn't eat anything. And you make it personal, which is hard for people because you're opening a part of yourself to people who don't know you. But here's the thing, everyone understands that because they have been depressed. People have all had an instance where they didn't want to leave their house. Maybe it's not because someone broke their, maybe it's because they got fired from a job. Maybe it's because they had a job that they loved and the business closed. Maybe it's because their car died and this was their favorite car in the world. We've all had that feeling of being depressed. So when you tell people you feel that way, they go, oh, I remember that feeling. I don't feel that way when my heart's broken, but I know what it's like when I feel depressed. And you actually make things more universal when you make it more personal. And people don't understand that. But that's true, which is why we want you to come and tell a personal story.
I
You'd
know.
be so good. You would be so good on stage, David, and we would help you every step of the way.
I know. I know. I just have to bite the bullet. I say that every time, but I feel like it's timing too, just me like getting to the place where that's okay. For me, it is that, you know, what you said.
What's going on?
Yeah, what you said though was true. I think for me, it's not getting up in front of the people. I mean, everybody gets, I get a little butterflies, but that's not, it's the reason for me that I stall with it is what you said. There's this, I don't like being vulnerable in front of people. And I think sometimes, you know, that's even mourning, you know, when somebody dies, you know, it's hard for me to um show those emotions in front of people. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I think the idea sometimes of getting up in front and sharing something that is very like personal to me. And I mean, I don't even share at work. Like they always do at work, they do this thing we have a marketing meeting every month and they do this thing called good stuff at the end. And I'm the one who's now putting together people's slides of here's some good things I did, you know, like they could have gone to a concert, they're out with their family. I never share anything because I just am very like, it's tough for me.
We would
And
help you,
so
David.
yeah, it's tough for me to open myself up because there is an element of if I let them in and know about me, then people can use that against you. It's a weird, twisted thing.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. That's one of the nice things about the classes. We tap them out at 10 because we really don't have room for more than 10. And 10 is about what we can work with uh, comfortably. But all the people in there are nervous about talking in front of a few other people. But they all get to know each other. And once they tell a story in front of the other classmates, it makes it easier for them to move to a stage where they tell it to more people because they learn that none of the people in the class think anything poorly of them. It doesn't matter what the story is. Universally, people in the class will go, that was a beautiful story. I'm so sorry you went through that. Or I'm so proud of you for standing up. The people in the class go out of their way to bolster people for opening up. And once that happens in the class and they get comfortable there, it makes it easier to go ahead and tell your story to other people. And this would help you add your things to your video because you've done good things every week too, David. You need to include yourself.
Oh, I know. I don't do it. I just, because it's a
No.
monthly thing, I'm just like, no, that's okay. I don't want to talk about what I do or whatever. It's, yeah, I think that's just always been my thing. But I get what you're saying. And I think sometimes it does help though, like sharing certain stories. I think for me, and I don't know how the other people are that you work with, but I think what I would probably get out of it would be that It's kind of that people relating to you, because sometimes I think you feel like people aren't going to get it or not going to relate to it. They're going to think it's stupid. But I think what I've seen with y'all's stories and the video clips, when I've watched some of the people that y'all have had on, because I've watched your clips and the different people who speak, it's funny because you end up resonating with their story in some way. There's some feeling that maybe it's not something you've gone through personally, but there's something about their story that you can kind of like empathize or go, oh my God, I would feel like this if that happened. And then there's others that I've seen that I completely relate to, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I get what you're saying.
What
Tell me,
what I like.
so this go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I'm good. Go ahead.
What I was going to say, what we tell people, and it's my belief about storytelling, is that uh, when you tell a story, you actually can change another person. And not necessarily in a big way where they're going to have a come to Jesus moment, or they're going to change political affiliation, or they're going to abandon their family, whatever, but in small ways. Because what happens when someone hears a story that's told by the person that had this experience, and you're open and you're honest and you're truthful and you talk from your heart, they get to experience the world in a way they never will, because they get to look at you and imagine what it must have been like to feel that way. Now, they may not have lived your life. You may have had to divorce your wife or your husband because of whatever reason, because they didn't love you, they lied, whatever it is. They may not have had that experience, but everyone has had the experience where a relationship doesn't go the way you want it. And that, you being honest about your problems with your relationship, lets other people know, oh, this can go wrong in so many ways. There are so many things that can go bad. And it's not that what happens to you is going to change their life, but it's that what happens to you and your story gives them a new perspective on, wow, the world is bigger than I thought. People feel more things than I understand, and people feel different feelings in the exact same situation. Some people get scared and they start punching people. Some people get scared and they cry. When I go to the doctor and they want to take blood, I am laughing the whole time. The nurses will send other nurses in to look at me while I'm laughing, and they'll say, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "I am so scared this is going to hurt. I can't stop myself from laughing. I think in my brain, I think that if I laugh, you'll like me more. And if you like me more, you'll hurt me less." But I don't understand it. But we all have our own ways of reacting to things. And when you tell people what they are, it just changes our view of the world, because the world is bigger than we think.